So hi everybody, thank you for joining us today. My name is Angie Vishyanan and I run Leg Up Legal. We're a company that offers a mentoring app to connect pre-law students to lawyers for mentoring. And we just started doing these free weekly meetups for law students, current law students, prospective law students, and lawyers to just get on and meet each other and share some tips about how to get through these difficult times. And so I usually try to bring on some guest speakers, and we'll do present a topic for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then afterwards we just open it up for a Q&A, and you guys can talk and chat and meet each other. So feel free to turn your cameras on and interact and talk to each other. Our guest speaker today is someone who's very special to me because she is just like you. She just joined these meetups and started watching them with us. And has really benefited from them. So she decided to come on today to present her experience. Ashley Elson is a senior at Baruch College, and she's planning on applying to law school. She attended one of our meetups, I think the second week we were doing this, and she learned a little bit about networking, and she started to apply some of the strategies that she was learning and started just really reaching out to attorneys and connecting with them. And we had a one-on-one call afterwards, and she told me she had reached out to over 40 attorneys. And I was like, oh my gosh, you have to come and talk about this. I think because a lot of people will, listen to advice, and I think it's hard for them to think about how they're going to implement it for themselves. So I really wanted you guys to hear Ashley's story, because it'll help you really see what it's like when, you really dig into this stuff and you start trying to navigate this all for yourself. So Ashley, welcome, and please take it away.
Thank you, Angie. Hi, everyone. I hope you're surviving quarantine and being safe and healthy. As Angie said, I'm currently in New York City at Baruch College, and I want to go to law school in the future. So I started at the beginning of quarantine really just exploring and thinking about, maybe I should start this process now, and I should start learning more now that I have the time. So I met Angie over a networking event, webinar, Zoom thing, and we had the chance to speak, and that's how I got involved with Leg Up Legal. And Angie has been a tremendous help so far, giving me really great advice. So yeah, like I said, I was really brand new to networking and my exploration of the legal field. And I think Angie asked me a question. She said, do you know what practice areas you're interested in? And I was like, no. I'm currently interning for a solo practitioner who works in family law. So that's really the only exposure I've had to different practice areas. So that's when, Angie suggested you should start reaching out to lawyers. You should start networking, learning more. And that's what I started to do. So I got a lot of tips from Leg Up Legal from that event that they held, and just all the tips so far. So I'm going to share some of them with you. But I'm going to share now a PowerPoint, and from there we'll get started. So can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up. Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Awesome. So, I really just started by doing my research, and I tried to find people to reach out to. Angie had shared with me a guide for networking from the event, from the Leg Up Legal event in the beginning of April. Just really explaining how to reach out to people. And so it's something completely uncomfortable. Like, you're not used to just saying, hey, could I talk to you? Like over email or over Zoom, So it was difficult, especially under these circumstances, being able to reach out to people and not be afraid of doing that. So again, I started by doing my research. I went on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your best friend when you want to start, networking, and you want to start connecting with people in the areas that you want to go into. So I started by researching people who went to Baruch College who are alumni of my school and seeing which one of them are in the legal profession. And that's pretty much where I started, alumni from my school. I think it's helpful to really to be open and be willing to reach out to anyone. So reaching out to lawyers in all different organizations, whether they work for city, state, in big law firms, small law firms, being really open to your options and just reaching out to anyone, because you never know who's going to respond. So you'll send out an email, but you don't know, if they'll be willing to speak to you. You don't know if, when you guys do speak, you'll love what they're doing. So I think keeping an open mind of who you want to speak to is really helpful. And again, this is, in my case at least, and maybe for many of you on the call, this is the stage of exploration. You really want to explore all the options that exist in the legal profession. So I made a lot of connections by, now there's a lot of free Zoom meetings or webinar events. And I made a lot of connections by just following up with the panelists and just letting them know I participated in this event that you held or that you co-hosted or that you spoke at, and just letting them know, like, I was listening, I was there, may we connect, can we talk more about your experiences? And that was a tip that Angie gave me, and it was really fruitful. Like, it was really helpful because I was able to make connections with people who are knowledgeable in that field, who are willing to share the information that they know, because that's why they were on the webinar and the panel in the first place. And I was really successful in just speaking with those people afterwards. And lastly, just asking for introductions. I know Angie introduced me to a young lawyer in the New York City area. And if you connect with someone and you know that the other person knows the other person, you can always ask for that connection and just say, hey, I see that you know this person and I would really love to speak to her or him. Reaching out and asking for that introduction really helps, especially once you establish that bond and that connection that we'll go into later.
Oh, real quick. So in case you guys don't have the chat window open, I dropped a link to the Google Drive folder that has all of the templates and the resources that Ashley's going to be discussing. So just check the chat window and you should be able to get that folder.
Thank
Okay.
you. Yes, so everything's there that I'll mention. So as I said, LinkedIn is your best friend. And these are just some tips when you're reaching out. Really, when you're trying to connect with people, all you need is an email address. So in my case, I found a lot of the people that I wanted to speak to on LinkedIn, but I tried to email them first, just because, like, when I was connecting, I don't have LinkedIn Premium, so when you're connecting, you can't really, you have, I think, a 300 character limit. So I tried to find that person's email by either Googling their name, looking for the firm where they work, and just trying to find that contact email so that I could send out the template that I was using, because it was pretty long, just as an introduction, everything like that. So I would suggest, and this is my tidbit or my 2 cents, but I would suggest finding the email and connecting with that person first through email. Then after I had spoken to that person or set up a time to speak, then I would add that person on LinkedIn and just say, hey, thanks for speaking with me, or, looking forward to our conversation. But I think the most fruitful connections or cold emails were from emailing people over sending a connection straight on LinkedIn. And yeah, I think one major thing to think about through this process is don't be afraid of being rejected. I sent probably more than 40 emails to different people. I sent emails, I sent LinkedIn messages, and out of that, I think I was pretty blessed to only get like 10 informational interviews from that. So I think you can't be afraid of someone rejecting you or someone not answering you, because again, I think we have to be, or I was trying to keep in mind, like we have to be conscious of the times we're in as well. You know, maybe people are going through some personal tragedies. They maybe don't have the time right now to worry about other things. So I think just being conscious of that, especially during this time, is helpful, and you know, will keep your feelings from being too hurt. um, but yeah. Next, I'm going to share, this is just how I looked for people on LinkedIn. So I went to my college's LinkedIn page, and they have a section that says alumni here. And then I would search for words, either lawyer, attorney, legal, and I tried to filter out the years that they graduated from Baruch, because if they graduated later than 2017, that means they're still in law school. Or so I tried to filter them out. And then you'll find people, you know, go through the results, and you'll find people to connect with. You'll find people in different practice areas, or like I said before, they don't have to be in any specific sector. Like, you know, keep your options open. Don't just look for people in big law firms. Also look at people who work perhaps in government or in other areas, so that you can really get an idea of what it is to go through the law school process, and you know, just practice law.
And if you're interested in going to a certain law school, you could do this for that law school. Like search the actual law school's page and look up their alumni and message them. So I think that's another good tip. You know, you don't have to just be limited to your undergrad alumni. Feel free to do this with law firms that you want to work at, or places that you know, you're interested in. I think it really helps to find people who have gone through what you're about to go through. So if you want to go to law school at Harvard, you know, talk to some Harvard alumni and see what they think. If you want to go to these smaller law schools, that, you know, I think people have really unique experiences, and you might automatically discount, you know, one law school over another because it's not as prestigious, but I think you should actually talk to those students to see, like, even though it's a prestigious law school, you might find that certain prestigious law schools only focus on helping the top 10% of their class or top 20% of their class, and they kind of ignore the bottom half of the class. And so you might have a harder time trying to get a job if you're going to one of these law schools where they kind of ignore the bottom half of their class. But if you go to a law school where all of their career services people are really, really dedicated in helping the entire class, no matter what your rank is, then you might get a better value out of going to that school.
That's awesome advice. That's so true. So next, again, like after looking for these people either at law schools that you want to go to, or from your undergrad, alumni at your undergrad, it's really, really helpful to track who you're reaching out to. So in the Google Drive, there's a template that includes a format similar to this, or exactly like this, where you should track who you're reaching out to. And even if they don't respond, it's really helpful to see it in an Excel spreadsheet, because then you can go back and say, okay, this person, you know, didn't reply to me. It's time for a follow-up, and you'll have everything in one area. So you have the contact information, you'll have, you know, the practice area, just in case you want to follow up with someone who might be in a specific practice area. One thing to note is here I included notes, and just for my sanity and to help me, I just wrote something that I can follow up with them on, to make it easier to build that relationship with that person. Because like Angie said, there's a lot of people who you'll speak to one time, but the point is really building a relationship with that person, and establishing, you know, a professional relationship where you can go to that person and ask some questions that you might have. So yeah, if you want, you can use the note section as like, follow up with this person. And this lawyer, Francisco, was actually the first lawyer that spoke with me. The first informational interview I had was with him, and he suggested, certain things to do when quarantine is over. So I was like, okay, once I do that, I know I have to email him back and let him know so that we can maintain our relationship fresh. So this
Oh,
was,
actually, could you
yeah,
go back real
of
quick?
course, yeah.
Okay, so, and then the other thing is, I suggested that you add two columns here. So there's most recently contacted and dates contacted. So the dates contacted column, you can put in every date that you talked to them. But the most recently contacted column, you want to just put the most recent interaction. That way you can actually filter and sort by who have I talked to most recently and who is the one that I haven't talked to in a long time. So that way you can, really call up all the people that you haven't reached out to in a while easily by using all the filters. But I just wanted to note that because it was a little bit of a change that we made.
Right. Yeah. Angie did suggest that, and that was really helpful. Just to look through everyone that I reached out to and just see, okay, who haven't I spoken to? So that was really helpful. So this is the cold email that I sent to Francisco. And this is pretty much the same template I used. This was actually a template that Angie shared with me. And it was from the last event, the first event that I participated in. So this is also in the Google Drive, and you obviously change it to make it personalized for yourself. But what you're really doing here is you're giving the lawyer a virtual elevator pitch. Like, this is who I am, this is why I'm reaching out. And from there, you give them an explanation, like, this is how I found your information, this is why I'm reaching out. And then your ask. So you want to set up some time to speak, in the template that is all included. So you'll be able to just show them really quickly, like, this is who I am, this is what I'm asking of you, and I would love to speak to you. So this was the cold email that I sent. And it was successful. Like I said, probably 25% of the time. So I had like about 10 to 15 responses after those emails. So what now? Like, you're speaking with this person, you have a date set up, what now? So Angie had sent me informational interview questions, and that was extremely helpful, especially the first time speaking with a lawyer. I was so nervous. I was like, I didn't tell him that he was the first person I was speaking to, but I was like, oh my God, what am I going to say? But thank God I had the questions, and that, like I said, those are included in the Google Drive. And they're really a helpful reference to keeping the conversation going. And I found, after having a few of those conversations, that it's really just that, like, a conversation. Like, you don't want to sound like a robot asking these questions. And like I said, they're there for a guide if you perhaps the conversation slows down or you don't know what to say next. But I found that I was really, like, one question would lead to another, and I would kind of come up with my own questions, and we would start having like a natural, organic dialogue. So that was extremely helpful. And I realized, like, throughout these conversations, a lot of the times people, they, like Angie said, everyone has their unique experiences and everyone has their unique perspective. So sometimes you have to take what they say with a grain of salt. And I spoke with a lot of people who, ironically, like, one person's experience was completely different from the next person I spoke to, and perhaps contradicting a lot of the time. So one person would advise me one thing and the other person would say the complete opposite. But, I think it was helpful to know that like I said, I'm in the exploration stage. So hearing all of those perspectives was really helpful. So I think when you're speaking to these people, have a really open mind and acknowledge, like, they have different experiences. Everyone has their own experience. And just finding the one that you most identify with, I think, is part of this process. So I've been learning a lot about the legal profession and about networking in general. So this has been a really cool exercise, really fun.
I think the important thing to note too is like interviewing is a skill. The more you do it, the more you stretch or, you know, use those muscles, those interviewing muscles, like the more you will get better at it. And you'll like be intellectually curious. If they say something like they had a bad experience, don't be afraid to dig into that. It's like when lawyers are giving depositions, sometimes something will come up during the deposition and the lawyer won't follow up on that later. And that'll be the key thing that you were supposed to find out. And so when you're questioning these lawyers and talking to them, if they say something like, "Oh, you just shouldn't go to law school," don't let that be the end of it. Ask them why they feel that way. Why don't they think it's worth it? What was it in their experience that made them say that? And how can you maybe avoid those pitfalls in the future? Really dig into those things, because I think it's really important to note that, especially depending on what time these lawyers graduated, what date, there are certain periods in the legal profession that, especially during the recession, when a lot of lawyers were graduating and they weren't getting jobs and they were really unsatisfied with their legal education because they felt like they couldn't get the job they wanted afterwards. So if you talk to a lot of people who came out somewhere between, 2010, 2011, 2012, those are kind of a lot of the stories that you might hear. But really think about, okay, when was this person going to law school? When was this person graduating? What was going on during that time that might have led to these things? Because it might be a completely different story for you now going to law school. So yeah, so really just dig in and just um, be inquisitive, be curious.
Right. Definitely. And I agree with that a lot. And it's been helpful just with, especially since I'm like, I don't know anything about the law school process, about practicing law. So just coming in with that curious mind, it's and asking, not being afraid to ask those questions respectfully, uh, is it will be really helpful in the long run, especially when you're exploring whether law is the profession for you, or if you actually want to go to law school. This is your life we're talking about, what you're going to be practicing um, for the rest of your life. It's a big financial investment. So I think, like Angie said, being curious and asking those questions really can help you make a better and informed decision. Um, so that's been my experience so far. Uh, and finally, this is the follow-up email that I sent to Francisco. And after I spoke to every single person, I made sure to write a similar email, obviously uh, personalized to what we spoke about. And I recommend sending it within 24 to 48 hours, and really just thanking them for their time. Here I summarized our conversation, so just the really key points that we took away. And Angie had recommended to me she said, write down what you want to remember in 10 days. So I'll make sure I take a note of things that I really want to remember from our conversation. This is also included in the Google Drive, by the way, if you haven't seen it already, the follow-up email template. Uh, and if they gave you any specific advice or told you something specific, what you should be doing or what you should do, restate their advice and tell them how you're going to put it into practice, and promise them to follow up afterwards. That's a perfect segue to continue your relationship and continue those conversations. And here in this email, since this was the very first email I sent, I have a very general ask, like, oh, if you have anyone to introduce me to afterwards, let me know. But I was speaking to someone last week and he told me, like, you should be more specific with your ask. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. He's like, if you want to know someone in a very specific area, like, make it as easy as you can for me to help you. So tell me exactly what it is you want, because then I can't say no. So I think that was really helpful advice. So if you have any follow-up requests, be really specific and know what it is that you want, and just, I guess, if the person offered, don't be afraid to take them up on it, really. And I think the last thing I just want to say is, I think these follow-up emails really will dictate how the rest of your relationship goes or how the next conversation goes. because I think people really appreciate gratitude. And I think if you show that how grateful you are for their time, for their conversation, for their advice, they're going to have a really sweet taste in their mind when they think of you, because you're showing them like you appreciated the time that they took. And I think perhaps I'm not there yet, but I can imagine like as a lawyer, as a higher up in your profession, you really, I guess you feel nice helping other people. So I think showing that person how much they help you will make them feel really good. um, and just finally, this was just, I had emailed Francisco the follow-up email, and then I had added him on LinkedIn afterwards, just thanking him again and making sure that we stayed connected through that medium. And this was his response. Also, nice summary email. So I have Angie to thank for that, for telling me how helpful those emails are. But just the fact that he just like shouted out there, I was like, thanks, Angie. um, but yeah, that's just been my experience so far. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now. How do I do that? Right there.
Yeah, and actually, I think I wanted to go ahead and share my screen to show you one of the recaps that I've done with a mentee, because I want to show you guys that, I try to practice what I preach. So, after I started doing these follow-up emails when I was just, starting out as a young lawyer, and I found that I started to do this for all of my meetings to make sure that they were really productive, where, I would take a bunch of notes in the meeting, and then afterwards I would take the time to think through, what did I learn, and reflect on that meeting, and then send a recap to the person who spoke to me and say, thank you so much for this meeting. Here's a quick recap of some of the things that we discussed, and here are the next steps that we promised to do. And it just kept both of us accountable for anything that we promised to do. Because I had a lot of lawyers who promised to do things for me, and then of course they wouldn't do them. So then I could send them the email and forward it back again and be like, hey, remember, we connected a few weeks ago and you mentioned that so-and-so that you would introduce me to, do you mind, making that introduction? And so it's a good way to kind of gently prod people for when they make me promises. But it was also good to keep me accountable to other people for the things that I promised. And so I wanted to show you one of the recaps that I've recently done. Here, let me see, share screen. Okay, all right. Yeah. So this is one of my mentees, and basically, I just told her, like, do a quick recap of anything that we spoke about that you want to remember in 10 days, exactly as Ashley said. And then next steps, whatever we agreed to do, you literally put like who agreed to do it, and then what, the next step is. So, here, she was going to meet with an attorney that I had introduced her to, and then we were going to debrief on that meeting, and we've said what day we're meeting again. And then that way, both of you are on the same page. And it also helps because, so in this case, when she sent back her recap, there were a couple of things that I didn't think of to say during our conversation, and I wanted to mention those to her afterwards. So I said, here's some highlighted things, the things that I wanted to mention and forgot to mention. So that way you can even get more value out of that meeting. But these are just some, tips that I've developed over time on how to make sure that you're really getting a lot out of these relationships that you're building. Taking the time to reflect on these meetings really will help you, get so much more from them. Because when you're having a, conversation, you're constantly processing what that person says, thinking of what you want to say, thinking of the next thing you want to go to, and your brain doesn't have enough time to really stop and like process how valuable some of that information that they're giving you is. And so you might want to do, a Zoom call with these people and see if they wouldn't mind you recording it so that you can actually rewatch it and think about it and reflect on it. And then that way you can really cull that conversation for the information that you want. So, but yeah.
Yeah, to add to that, I forgot to mention, while I was speaking with this person either on Zoom or on the phone, I was taking a lot of notes, a lot of handwritten notes. I'm a handwriter, so like I read a lot of handwritten notes. But I like Angie said, I would go back right after our call, make sure to reread, to elaborate. Maybe I wrote like a word because he moved on to a different topic and I didn't have time to flesh out that thought. Just going back into my notes and refreshing my mind about what we spoke about was really helpful. Just to, like Angie said, pick up on the important things that person said, and also to write the follow-up email. So I recommend like writing or typing notes, whatever you feel comfortable doing while you're speaking to the person, because we can forget a lot of things.
And I did all these recap emails and stuff, even to my own supervisors. When I was working in law firms, I would do this for my partners, and they loved it because they were like, oh yeah, I totally forgot that we promised the client XYZ in the conversation that we had. And so after a while, I became known as like the best note taker in my group. And a lot of the times, partners would come to me and be like, hey, can I see your notes from that call? And you're driving value that way. So it always helps to develop these skills, note taking and having good conversations, interviewing, following up. All of those things are going to help you immensely in your practice, I promise. So. Yeah, so now I think we can just open it up for a Q&A. You guys feel free to ask Ashley questions about, her experience and what it's like what it's been like talking to these lawyers and anything. And we all have lawyers on the call. Sorry.
So. Yeah. Oh no. I was gonna say. So I'm a practicing lawyer. I'm a supervising attorney. Over 10 attorneys in California, and I've been practicing for quite a while. Pretty old. But I wanted to say this is fantastic. I cannot even imagine contacting 40 attorneys, but I think Angie really set up a great framework for it. And when you have a plan and a framework, it makes it much less intimidating, I think. And I loved, I'm on LinkedIn and very active on LinkedIn. That's how I met Angie. And I love LinkedIn. The one thing I would add on that is not just where they went to school, but look at their posts and see what they're passionate about, because that's a big point of conversation when you talk to them. So I had a student contact me the other day, and I suspect she was going to ask me to speak about the fact that I was previously a civil rights lawyer. For the California Department of Justice, which was many, many years ago. So that was on my resume. And what we ended up talking about, and I kind of redirected her towards, was that I'm very passionate about the mental health aspect of the profession. And that's really my big passion at this point in my career. And so she ended up asking me to speak on that topic, which is something I'm really interested in. So I think if you find what the person's interested in, whatever they're posting on LinkedIn, they're very interested in it. That's their passion project. And it's like talking to someone about their kid. They can talk to you all day about whatever they're passionate about. And I'll just make one more point, the note taking. Couldn't agree more, Angie. Good attorneys, I take notes still for everything. I will send them to people and say, this is what we discussed and whatever, and then it's in your email. You have a copy of it, and even if it's like an internal thing, so let's say I'm talking about maybe some issues an attorney might have in my group, I'll send it to another manager on the team and say, I spoke with so-and-so about this today, and that just creates a record that you can always search for later. So I'm a huge fan of the recap. When I see people do it, I'm immediately impressed. A lot of lawyers actually don't do it, but it is a sign of being a really excellent lawyer, because if you're practicing well, documenting it is the best possible way to protect yourself and create cover, and also just to give really good client service. So I couldn't agree more. That's a good habit to get in now. So thanks so much, you guys, because this has been a great presentation.
Thank you, Lisa. That's awesome. I so agree with what she's saying. Check on what these lawyers are talking about now, because they might have graduated from law school decades ago, and so they might not want to just talk to you about their law school experience. They might want to talk to you about all the things that they're doing now. I mean, I've connected with so many lawyers that their career has evolved in such a cool way. They're now in legal tech, or they're now in, completely different organizations, or they're now career coaches or recruiters, whatever it is. But, they might have done law school and they might have worked in law firms and decided that they want to move on to a different area of their career. And it just gives you the opportunity to hear about something totally different that you might not even been aware of. So.
That was great advice. I didn't think about that, but I'm definitely going to add that to the spreadsheet. So I guess it's like if you want to develop a relationship with that person, you want to talk about different things other than just law.
Think about it like dating. If you were doing dating, and I have not dated also for 20 years, so I'm a dinosaur. But yeah, you would find what the person's interested in. You would find points of commonality that you're both interested in, and that's how you cultivate a relationship. When you, so the student I was talking to, she actually said, yeah, I'm really excited about mental health things. She said, I'm open about my mental health struggles. I'm on medication. And that was really a good point of commonality for me to say, this is something I'm really passionate about. And she was as well. So that's kind of the way to, I think that's the way to evoke interest in, like you said, develop a relationship and a groundwork for a relationship of substance. It's not just necessarily based on the career, but a little more long term.
And if people mention personal things about themselves, if people mention that they have kids or a dog or something, like those are the details that you should remember, because those are the details that are going to help you bond with those people. When I was practicing, all the colleagues that I would meet, I would remember the names of their kids, their birthdays, their kids' birthdays, I mean, because those are the things that help you bond with people. It's not the goal in asking these questions, you'll see on the list of informational interview questions, it's like 40 questions. Don't just pepper them with all 40 questions. That was not the point of that. Like, use the questions that you think will lead to things that you want to talk about, but then also be perfectly open to letting that conversation go wherever it's going to organically go. You don't have to just rein them back into like, oh, what's your law school experience like? This isn't a deposition. It's not. So just feel free to like really explore, if they decided to take their career in a completely different direction, why? What were the things that made them want to do that? And what were the preconceived notions that they had originally about their career path that were wrong? I think that those are the most valuable things you can hear. I had so many ideas of what I thought made really good lawyers when I was thinking about going to law school. Like, oh, they must have gone to a T14 law school, and they must have, been on law review. They must have been on moot court. They must have done all these things. And like, the actuality is the best lawyers that I met, some of the best lawyers I've ever met did none of those things. Some of the worst lawyers that I met did all of those things. So, I think it's really important to just talk to people about their experiences and just learn more about them as a person. I mean, ultimately, it's all about building these genuine human connections. Genuine human connection is what drives our profession. Like, it's all about really helping other people and understanding other people. And if you just go into it with this mechanical mindset of, I just need to get this one thing out of this person, like that, you're never, ever going to get the true value of that relationship. So just think about that, and all you have to focus on, and this is what I told Ashley, all you have to focus on is getting one more meeting. That's it. One more meeting. So like the first time you reach out to them, you're just getting that first informational interview. Can I just get 30 minutes with you to talk? Then after that, while you're talking in your conversation, try to identify one thing that you can follow up with them on. Just like Ashley said, ask them for advice on what organizations should I join to learn more about your practice area, or what types of, do you have articles that I could read to learn more about your practice area or what we talked about today? And then after you go and read those things, come back and say, hey, I took your advice. I mean, lawyers love to hear that. Like, you took their advice and you went and did it. And so that'll help you continue to build on that relationship. You just have to get one more meeting. That's it.
Right. And I think a lot of, I don't know at what point everyone on the call is in their like education, but as an undergrad student, I know a lot of people are very willing to help students and to help people who, identify themselves as students. I think people are really willing to help at this point in the game. So I think take advantage of that. I have one more year left, so I'm definitely going to take advantage of the student title until then.
What about everyone else? I mean, what have you guys been doing? Have you connected with any cool people during this time?
Yeah, so for me, I'm relatively new to the whole LinkedIn game. I mean, I started a LinkedIn account maybe, I don't know, my sophomore year of college. I'm a graduating senior now, but in terms of being active on the platform, it's really only been about maybe 2 months. Building out the profile, kind of throwing in my experiences in there. So I'm relatively new. I reached out to Ashley a few days ago, and I saw she was commented on a post from a mutual friend of ours. So I guess we just followed up, and that led me to this webinar. So yeah, thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Angie.
Thanks.
Yeah, Jesus, we did another webinar just last week on how to use LinkedIn, and so if you want to go and watch that, it's on our YouTube channel.
Okay, so I just look up Leg Up Legal LinkedIn.
Leg Up Legal YouTube, and you'll find our channel, and then you
I'll
can
send it to you
find it.
afterwards.
Yeah, and
Cool.
or Ashley can send you the link for it as well.
Fantastic, awesome, thank you.
Actually, I think we haven't uploaded that episode on YouTube yet, but I sent out the Zoom link to everybody who registered last week. So
Yeah.
Ashley should have the link. She can give it to you.
Yeah.
But I will definitely get it up on YouTube shortly. So, but I mean, yeah, one of the really cool things about LinkedIn is that, overnight you can really just skyrocket your engagement. Like I have been on LinkedIn pretty much since I started law school, but I was not doing anything on it while I was in law school. Never posted anything. I was definitely a lurker. Like I was just like, hey, LinkedIn, what's going on? But like I wasn't really doing anything on it. And then when I became an attorney, like I just started posting like your average, like boring, I wrote an article, here it is. Like that's all it was, but I didn't really engage on it, like somebody should be engaging on it. And so I didn't start really digging in and doing more posts and engaging on other people's posts and commenting and sharing information until probably in this last like year. And so I started off with, I think 3 months ago, I went back and checked all of my stats. And so 3 months ago, I had literally 100 followers, and now I have 2,500 followers. So, and then I was actually just talking to a good friend of mine, Alex, this morning. I was telling Ashley about this. I met Alex he's doing Zoom meetups, and we met about a month ago. And when we talked today, he said, I have been posting on the internet ever since I was 18 years old, and I'm now 36, and I used to do Reddit, I used to do Livewire and like all of these different forums. And then he's like, and then once I joined LinkedIn, I was posting on LinkedIn once a day for the last 3 years. And for 3 years, he wasn't getting any traction. So it was bizarre. So he shifted from being a lawyer to doing sales. So he now does technology sales. And he said when he would post about sales, nobody was looking at his stuff. But oddly, when he decided to mix the two and talk about the law and like how software products are impacting how people practice law, that's when he started to get traction. And so he said that so originally about 2 months ago, he had about what I had, about 2,000 followers. Since he started doing his meetups, he now has 10,000 followers. So like, I mean, literally it could happen overnight in like a month. Like you see some of these people like Gary Vee has 1 million followers on LinkedIn, but I don't think I really started seeing his really engaging stuff until about a year ago. And so, I mean, it's one of these really powerful platforms too. And this is another thing Ashley and I talked about is that, so the way that you found her, that she commented on somebody like a mutual friend of yours had posted, is like basically how everyone finds each other. And so comments are the key. Like if you're commenting on other people's stuff, that's how you get seen. It's not just sharing things. So for whatever reason, LinkedIn's algorithm is trying to bring together mini ecosystems of people. So if it sees that you are commenting on the same person's stuff all the time, it's going to kind of link you guys together. And so you're going to start seeing a lot of the same people's content in your same circle, and then your circle is going to grow, and then exponentially it's going to grow even larger. So yeah, you can create these kind of mini communities almost of all your friends on LinkedIn, even if you've never met them before. I mean, so I started engaging in Alex's calls. Through him, I met 3 other lawyers that threw me into a LinkedIn engagement group of like 45 female lawyers. And there's literally 45 of us in this group. And every day, when one of us posts something, we post a link to it in this group, and everyone else comments on it. And it gets our engagement to go through the roof. I mean, seriously, since I joined this group, I joined it 9 days ago. Since then, my engagement on LinkedIn has gone up like 300%.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's like, it just blows me away. And the reason I'm doing this is not because like LinkedIn's like a social club. Like, I don't want you guys to think like, oh, this is where all the cool kids are. Like, I mean, the whole reason we're doing this is because it helps us reach other people that are like us, other people we want to help, or other people that, might be able to give us knowledge or information. Like, that's why we're doing this. Like, it's not because, we're trying to sell them a product, or it's not because we're trying to push whatever type of law that we're, doing. Like, it's because we're genuinely trying to just connect to other human beings who might have similar interests. And I mean, I think that one of the beautiful things about our meetups that I've seen is that a lot of the people who participate on our meetups, like you guys today, a lot of you aren't even in our mentoring program. That's totally fine with me, and I don't even care. I want to reach as many people as possible to help you, anybody who's thinking about going to law school. Because I remember what it was like when I was thinking about going to law school. I didn't know the first thing of what I was doing. And so, so I just want to like reach out and help other people who are going through this. So like, please invite your friends, invite like so-and-so you met on LinkedIn yesterday. I don't care. I mean, that's the whole purpose of doing these, is just like help connect people to this ecosystem. So, so I'm so glad that you guys are here, and I'm so thankful for people like Ashley who are willing to just, dig in and just learn this. And, I mean, we're learning together. Like, I've learned so much in the last few weeks about LinkedIn. It's amazing. And it changes all the time. The algorithm changes all the time. The capabilities that you can see change all the time. I mean, LinkedIn started doing LinkedIn live video a little while back ago. And, I mean, I still haven't figured out what are the real benefits of doing LinkedIn live. I do know that you have to apparently sign up for it, because when I tried to do it the other day, they were like, you have to go sign up for the beta. And like the beta is apparently like, there's a list of like 1,000 people waiting because of all this COVID-19 mess. So like, so I'm figuring that out just now. But there's a couple things that I've learned, and one of the key things is just connecting with people genuinely that you feel like you can share an interest with. Just connecting with 1,000 new connections every day and not saying a single thing to those people doesn't really do anything for me. Like, I don't see any purpose in doing that. But like, just even connecting with 3 people a day that are real, genuine connections, I think makes a huge difference. So, but that's my 2 cents.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So has anyone else done anything cool, connected with cool people during this time?
Yeah, so actually, I think it might be the same Alex that Angie, Alex Sue.
Yeah.
Yeah, he posted like, I forgot exactly the premise of it, but basically he wanted people to connect so we could introduce ourselves, and attorneys did and law students did. And I'm finishing up my first year of law school. So, I kind of understand what I might be interested in, but I still have a long way to go. So I actually connected with a whole bunch of attorneys that posted under his post. And I ended up talking to an attorney that works for USPTO, which I'm interested in intellectual property. So like, that was really cool. And he was so willing to help. He sent me like essays of information, and I'm still talking to him actually. And I completely agree with what you just said about comments, because I think that's how I found you as well. Like, I saw your post and reached out to you. So I definitely agree that more than even like on top of, searching out people like alumni or people that might be in the law firm that you're looking for, also actually go through the feed, because that introduces you to like a lot of people that, you might not even come across otherwise. And maybe this is like common knowledge, but I was not doing that at first. Like, I was going straight to the search bar. But
Yeah.
I found that the feed actually does help. So yeah.
Yeah. So, and what type of intellectual property are you interested in? Mostly patents or also trademark and copyright?
So I thought I was mostly interested in patents because I have a hard science background. So I was like, oh, I could take the patent bar and, do that. But actually, after talking to the attorney, I was like, maybe I'm more interested in copyright or trademark. Like maybe there's more to think about here than I originally assumed. So that was something big. And I'm also interested in entertainment law. And I kind of actually didn't understand like the distinction between like IP and entertainment, and he really clarified that for me. So after,
Ooh, share that. I'm curious because I have a lot of people ask this all the time. Share that.
Okay, so obviously I'm no expert, but so basically what he kind of told me was IP is patents, trademarks, copyright, and while that is related to entertainment law is also more like contractual and like contracts and stuff like that as well that he doesn't deal with as a trademarks attorney, for example. So he was saying how like certain internships, like for example, my internship that I had for the summer, it got canceled because of coronavirus. So I reached out to someone else I had networked with, and I kind of explained the situation. And she was really nice, and she offered to kind of put me in on some of the projects she was doing. And I didn't even ask, but she was like, oh, if you would like, you could jump on some of the projects I'm doing, and I can teach you contracts. And I'm like, oh my God, I just took contracts in school. And she's like,
Awesome.
yeah, I can kind of teach you how to like draft them and more about, working with contracts rather than just cases. So something I didn't really understand was that just because you're dealing with music, for example, as an entertainment lawyer, doesn't mean that you're doing copyright, which also kind of is related to music, obviously. And that's something that I learned from the attorney. So,
Yeah, well, if you are interested in learning a little bit more about specifically the trademark and copyright side, I practiced trademark and copyright law for 5 years, and that was my focus when I was in law school. So I'm happy to connect with you afterwards and share more with you about it. I also mentor a lot of law students specifically for IP, and I have like a whole curriculum that I put them through. So if you're interested in seeing any of those materials, I'm happy to do that with you as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So, yeah. So, anybody else?
Hey, Angie, it's Florence.
Hi, how are you, Florence?
I'm all right. I'm doing good. I'm sorry I can't share my video. I'm carrying baby, so I don't know.
It's all good.
So, I've kind of sometimes it has been crazy ever since I spoke to you, because sometimes I wish I wish I met her like 3 years or 2 years. Came to America newly, because I've been in that state of confusion for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Something that has been holding me down, kind of confused what to do, where to go, and I don't really want to make a mistake. But after speaking to you last week, I felt like I have so much to do, so much work to do. I've had LinkedIn profile for years now, but I tell you, I don't know what it is.
Right.
I make use of it. I just decided to just go there one day. That's how I met you. I was looking at universities and I checked University of New Hampshire, apparently because I was interested in IP. So, but after speaking to you, I kind of know that I have so much work to do. I've started trying to do for my LSAT, for trying to get some preparation, reaching out for people for my resume. And it's been a whole lot to do, but I must really, really thank you, because you kind of at least put a light to what I need to do and how to go about it, going to law school or making a decision, reaching out to people, not just sitting at home and say, well, what do I need to do? Reaching out to people is really, really, it has been great, I must say.
Good, I'm glad. It's good to hear.
Yeah, we need to have an Angie appreciation moment.
Oh, no.
Yes, to be honest.
No, it's all good. So who else? What else have you guys been doing?
Well, Angie, I would like to say the same thing. I don't want to show my show myself, but yes, you've actually been like the light at the end of the tunnel. Like I've had help, but you've actually broken down the process of how to execute a plan. And I just really appreciate that. And,
Aw. Thank you. I'm glad these are making a difference. When I first started doing them, nobody was like actually engaging. Like everybody was listening to me and nobody was actually talking back. So I was like, I don't know if anybody's paying attention or like who I'm talking to out there. So it's good to hear. But well, I mean, yeah, if you guys have any other questions, feel free. I would love it if you guys want to, share stories about people that you're connecting with and who you're talking to and what you're learning from them so that we can all learn from each other. One of the things that I told some of my mentees to do is after you talk to these lawyers, do a little write-up on it, do a little post about, I connected with this lawyer last week. They were willing to share all these things with me. These are some of the things that I learned, kind of like that follow-up recap email, because lawyers like being recognized for stuff that they're doing. So, and it might help, other people to see like, oh, what did you talk about with them? What are some other things that I could explore with them? One of the things that I've been thinking about doing for a while now is I put together this podcast a while ago called the Law Lives Project. And it was the real stories of how lawyers got to where they are today. And it wasn't just, oh, let's talk about your current practice area. It was all the hard stuff. It was, how did you even think about getting into law? And what were the setbacks you faced when you went through that journey? And how did you decide which law schools to apply to? And how did you pick which one you were going to, whatever ridiculous reason it was? And then and what was your journey like when you were there? What kind of summer jobs did you get? Did you feel like you were ahead of the game? Were you a gunner? Or were you totally behind in the class? Did you feel like, that's how I was, my law school experience, I fell out of the struggle tree and hit every branch on the way down. Like it was so painful. I think I spent most of my first year just curled up in the fetal position crying. Like I was just like, I don't know what's happening to me right now. So, I think it's just, I don't know, it helps you bond with people a lot more when you hear about how everyone got started, because it's like so it's hard to talk to a lot of lawyers when you feel like you don't have anything in common with them. They're like at level 20 and you're at like level 1, and it's hard to connect with people that way. And so that's why we wanted to do this podcast where we really go through kind of the beginning stages of everyone's career. And so we shot like 12 episodes, and then I didn't have any time to like actually get it up and running. So so my intern had been cutting them this whole time. And so we're pretty much at a place where we can start publishing them again. But I thought maybe it would actually be cool if we had guest hosts for the podcast alongside our guests. So like if we had just students like you guys interviewing the guests, it would allow you guys to like actually interact with these lawyers, but also, have a chance to try out your interviewing skills and all of that. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I would love to. That sounds like so much fun.
If you want to participate, I don't know. Like
I would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sign me up. That'd be amazing. That'd be cool.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So, all right. Well, I'll put something together to try to start kicking it off again, because I think it'll be a really good experience, and I think that way, not just one person has to do the same informational interview with, 20 other people. Like that way, each of you can learn from all the informational interviews that all of you guys are doing, and so I think that'll be really, really powerful. And it helps to get the perspective of lawyers, even in the exact same practice area, supposedly doing the exact same thing. Like if you're in the same, if you're in a large firm and you practice copyright law versus like another person in a large firm that practices copyright law, it's not like your lives are similar at all. Like they could be totally different. So I think it's important to talk to as many people as possible within the areas that you're interested in, because I'll tell you, I was at a AmLaw 100 firm, one of the largest firms in America practicing trademark law. And one of my friends was also at an AmLaw 100 firm practicing trademark law. My life was completely different than hers. You know, I was doing a lot of transactional work. She was doing a lot of litigation work. She was doing a lot of enforcement work. You know, we were just doing different things because the law is so vast that you could literally spend all day in like a small niche of it, not touch anything else. So I don't know. I mean, I think that it's important to get the perspectives of lots and lots of different people. But I'm really, really glad like all of you guys are enjoying these meetups and that you're joining regularly. It's good to see the same faces. It's good to see new faces. You know, please invite more other people. I'd love to meet them. And yeah, if you guys have topic ideas of other things you want to, you know, hear about or see, you know, I'm happy to do those. You know, we were thinking we might even do different sessions on like other types of social media. How can you use Instagram, or how can you use Facebook, or how can you use Twitter for networking, because all the mediums provide something just a little bit different, you know. So we might do some of those in the future. But yeah, I mean, shoot me an email with like what you want to see, and I'm happy to bring people on. So on Thursday, we're going to be having a law student who just finished his first year come and talk about his experience. So he got into law school with like a 2.4 GPA or something, and he had a really rough undergraduate experience, didn't do terribly well on the LSAT, but just blew his first year out of the water. So I'm really impressed by him, and I think he's going to be great. So his name is Kenny Butchery, and then next week we're going to have one of my friends, Ian Nelson. He runs his own legal tech startup where they actually create experiential learning simulations for lawyers. So he'll put together an entire simulation on how do you do a mergers and acquisitions deal from start to finish, and they train lawyers on how to do this stuff. And so Ian is fantastic. I think he wants to talk about what happens if you end up having to do law school online, and how can you make the most of that online learning experience, and if you're in current university doing classes online, how can you make the most of those experiences as well? Because he has a lot of experience in online learning, how to make it engaging, how to actually learn from it, because it is a very different medium. It's a very different deal. So I think that's going to be great. So yeah, totally tune in for all of our future sessions, and let me know if there's anything else you guys want to hear. Alrighty, well, you guys have a great week. Be happy, safe, and healthy, and I'll talk to you soon.